Welcome to this series of lessons on Unit 5, Chords. And we've reached one of those points where I look at the teaching materials provided by the ABRSM and I shake my head whilst saying, oh dear. The criticism I often make of the ABRSM syllabus for piano scales and for music theory is that it often takes them 5 grades at least to offer the student anything remotely close to the whole picture. Nowhere is it truer than here. 2 pages at grade 1. 2 pages at grade 2. And 3 pages at grade 3. And all you've learnt is that there's something called the tonic triad in 4 keys at grade 1, another 6 keys at grade 2, and another 8 at grade 3, totaling 18 keys. And, as you'll realise in lesson 2, knowing only the tonic triad of any key will not give you the ability to harmonise tunes. You need at least 2 other triads to do that, so the information covered in grades 1, 2 and 3 is next to worthless. Well, by the end of this short lesson, you'll be able to work out the tonic triads of every key, major and minor, with key signatures up to 6 sharps or flats. That's 13 major keys and 13 minor keys. And you'll be able to identify the dominant and subdominant triads too, and the supertonic triad also, and the submediant triad. So let's chuck the books and get wise. Quite simply, a triad is a chord made up of 3 notes. Not just any 3 notes, but specifically a chord which looks on paper like this, where the notes are on 3 neighbouring lines, or this, where the notes are in 3 neighbouring spaces. These are triads. Notice that I've not included the clefs here. Any chord on any stave using any clef looking like these is a triad. So now you know what a triad is. Let's get more complicated. By the way, for the purpose of this video, I'm only going to use the treble clef, but the printable support material contains examples using the other clefs too. Quite simply, a tonic triad is a triad where the bottom note is the first note, otherwise known as the tonic, of a named scale. Where better to start than with C major. Here we see the scale of C major, and we can see that C is on its own ledger line, so that it's one of those triads where notes are on 3 neighbouring lines. So we can add E on the next line and G on the next one after. And we've just created the tonic triad of C major. And we can see that a tonic triad is made up of the tonic, the mediant and the dominant notes, the first, third and fifth notes of the scale. And this isn't just the case with C major, it applies to every major and every minor scale too. So if you've learnt your scales, as I've recommended several times, this is going to be very easy. If you haven't, you may find what follows tricky. Have you learnt your scales in Unit 3? And can you play your scales on your instrument? If not, learn them. You will not regret having that basic theoretical knowledge when you do your exam. Let's try a few of these tonic triads. What is the tonic triad of D major? Okay, we could start with the key signature and the scale of D major. Here, D is in the space between middle C's ledger line and the E line on the treble clef. So we're adding a note in the next space up and the one after that. In other words, we start with D, the tonic or first note, F sharp, the mediant or third note, and then A, the dominant or fifth note. and that's the tonic triad of D major. If we remove the key signature, we must remember to sharpen the F. And it's the same in the minor scales. Let's try E minor. So we start with the first note of the E minor scale, E, and we add to it the third note of the E minor scale, which is G, and then the fifth note of the E minor scale, which is B. Notice that I didn't need to write the key signature of E minor as part of the answer. All I needed was the knowledge of the E minor scale so that I could identify the first, third and fifth notes, the tonic, the mediant and the dominant. Let's try something with a rather bigger key signature than 1 sharp. Let's try B flat minor. Obviously the tonic is B flat, and if we write it on the B line of the treble clef with its flat, we can quickly write in a note on the D and F lines, but we do need to check these notes. Well, if you know your B flat minor scale well, you can see the problem and you'll know the answer too. But let's assume you're not a keen player of scales. We know from Unit 3 that with flat key signatures you look at the last flat and count up to 3 to find the minor key to which the key signature belongs. And we can reverse the process by counting down 3 from B to G, B, A, G, to discover that the last flat of the B flat key signature in B flat minor is going to be G flat, which gives us a key signature of 5 flats, battle ends and down goes. And that tells us that D should be flattened. So let's correct our answer by inserting the flat. How about G sharp minor? Well, we know that the tonic is G sharp and that we need to add notes on B and D. But we need to know the key signature. With sharp key signatures, you need to look at the last sharp and go down a tone. So reverse the process and go up a tone from G sharp to A sharp. That tells us that the key signature ends with A sharp. And the whole key signature goes, Father Charles goes down and. Now that key signature tells us we must sharpen the D. And there you have tonic triads. If you know all your keys, all your scales, all your key signatures, creating the tonic triad in any of them is as simple as writing the tonic and then above it the mediant and the dominant. But what about those other triads I mentioned, the subdominant and the dominant triads? Well, if a tonic triad is a triad with a tonic at the bottom, it stands to reason that the subdominant triad is the triad with the subdominant at the bottom, and the dominant triad is a triad with the dominant as its bottom note. And if you remember that the subdominant and dominant are the fourth and fifth notes of the scale, we can calculate all the tonic, subdominant and dominant triads of every key to which we know the scale. Let's start with C major again. Here's our C major scale and our tonic triad, as before. So far, so good. So the subdominant is the fourth note of the scale, and here is the subdominant triad, built like all triads upwards from that note. And here's the dominant, the fifth note of the scale. And here's the dominant triad. Oh, and one important thing, we can label these chords built on the tonic, subdominant and dominant with Roman numerals 1, 4 and 5. Get used to using these Roman numerals as shorthand to identify triads. Let's just move from C major to C minor. Firstly, we add the key signature. If you don't know it, remember that with flat key signatures, you look at the last flat and count up 3 to find its minor key. So we can reverse the process and count down 3 from C. C, B, A. The key signature ends with A flat. So battle ends and 3 flats. But we need to do one more thing when dealing with trads in minor scales. We must use the notes from the harmonic minor scale. So here is the sharpened 7th B natural. This single fact has an impact which you must remember. When you come to creating your dominant trads in a minor key, you must raise the leading note, the 7th note of the scale, by a semitone. This means in C minor that the tonic and subdominant trads are minor trads, but the dominant trad here is major and it's got that B natural in the middle of it. Okay, so let's identify the tonic, subdominant and dominant trads of A major. Here is A with its key signature and its scale. Here are the tonic, subdominant and dominants. And here is the tonic trad, the subdominant trad, and the dominant trad, also with those Roman numerals. It really is as simple as that. Let's find the tonic, subdominant and dominant trads of B minor. We should know that B is a tone under C sharp, so the key signature of B minor has 2 sharps, F and C. And here is its harmonic minor scale with its sharpened 7th. So here is the tonic trad, the subdominant trad, and the dominant trad with its sharpened middle note taken from the harmonic form of the scale of B minor. I'm going to give you 2 more examples in a moment, but before I do so, I want to introduce an important term. The 3 trads we are identifying, the tonic, subdominant and dominant trads, are primary triads. In other words, the most important trads when harmonizing tunes. This means that other trads built on the supertonic, mediant, submediant and leading note are called secondary trads, which take a supporting role to the primary triads. For the purposes of grade 5 theory, you only need to be able to identify the chords on the supertonic and the submediant. So, for the last 2 examples, both of which are going to be in the minor key, because these keys are slightly trickier, let's identify the 3 primary triads, tonic, subdominant and dominant, as well as the supertonic and submediant trads. How about E flat minor? Let's work out the key signature. The last flat is 3 below E flat, E, D, C, so it is C flat. So here is the key signature of E flat minor, finishing with C flat. Battle ends and down goes Charles. And here is the scale, not forgetting to raise the 7th note by a semitone. And here are the primary trads on E flat, A flat and B flat, remembering to insert the D natural from the scale into the dominant chord. And here are the supertonic chord, labelled with 2, and the submediant chord, labelled with 6. And now G sharp minor. Let's work out the key signature. The last sharp is a tone above G sharp, so it is A sharp. So here is the key signature of G sharp minor, finishing with A sharp. Father Charles goes down and And here is the scale, not forgetting to raise the 7th note bar semitone. And to do that, we need to use the double sharp sign, so be careful. And here are the primary trads on G sharp, C sharp and D sharp, remembering to insert the F double sharp from the scale into the dominant chord. And here are the supertonic chord labelled with 2 and the submediant chord labelled with 6. Do use the printable support material for this lesson before moving on to the rest of the lessons in this unit. You've learnt roughly 90% of what you need to know for this unit, and the next 3 lessons will show you how to apply this knowledge you've gained here to the questions you'll see in the exam. See you in lesson 2.